Should you be worried about the U.S. debt being downgraded? So the credit rating agencies have downgraded U.S. debt. Oh my goodness. You should be worried, right? You panic. Blood on the streets, no doubt, because when they downgrade our debt credit, what does that mean? That means we're going to have higher interest rates. On top of the high interest rates, the interest payments we already have, we can't afford this. And I tell you, man, at some point you say, okay, well, let's see what the history shows. History shows when they did this in 2011, what happened to interest rates? Interest rates stayed below, whoa, dude. Interest rates in 2011 were higher than what they were for the next 11 years until 2022. U.S. debt was downgraded in 2011. U.S. debt credit, or the U.S. Interest rates using the 10-year treasury as the proxy, were below. They went below for the next 11 years where they were in 2011, even though the U.S. debt was downgraded in 2011. Explain that. You can't. So the idea that the credit rating agency is going to downgrade debt, is going to increase our debt payments, our interest payments, because fewer people are going to want our debt unless we have a higher interest rate. I mean, this is what happens. If you have a lower credit rating, you have to increase your yields or your interest rates on the bonds you offer to get people to buy them because they think they're taking on more risk. That's literally not what happened at all, though, in the United States. We did not have to increase the interest rates we're offering on new issues of bonds. In fact, they went the exact opposite. We lowered the rates, and yet people still bought up our bonds in massive amounts of chunks. I mean, just explain that. And then they'll say, well, Josh, don't you know that government spending? That's another thing they'll say. And the economists, the financial media, newbie financial planners, it's like, I guess people don't have an experience of history. I don't understand. One of the benefits about watching my YouTube channel, my friends, a little bit of self-promotion, is I've been doing this for a long time. In fact, on John Bogle's book that he had given me, and I got a signed copy from John Bogle, I was taking notes on the stuff. And it's just funny, I was reading back on it, and some of the stuff that I had thought in that book never matriculated in terms of what I thought would happen. And because he had written that book in 98, and I was reading it in 99 and just writing notes down. And just looking in hindsight, I was like, wow, that didn't come out like we had thought, or I had thought, relative to John Bogle's book. It's kind of interesting. So anyway, going back to the debt, the credit rating downgrade. So a lot of people say, hey man, this is bad news because the U.S. is going to have to jack up interest rates to appeal to U.S. bond. People want to buy U.S. debt. It never happened in 2011. It just did not. So they can pound saying that in that regard. Then part two, they say, well, the U.S. debt there's so much debt outstanding that we're going to have to jack up interest rates to appeal to people that we want to loan us money. And that hasn't happened. We've had debt on top of debt on top of debt via deficits. We've increased our debt so much over the last basically 80 years. We've only had a couple of years of a balanced budget, and never mind a surplus. And so we keep adding debt, and yet interest rates are still well below historical averages. They just, a 10-year treasury right now is at 4.5, less than 4.5. I mean, it's just insane. It's insane. In your own lifetime, I'm 54. My first mortgage was at 7%. I thought I was getting by. I said, oh, this is sweet. I mean, that was in 1999 or 1998, 1999. I can't remember, but in the late 90s. And yet what has happened to U.S. debt is I don't know, probably quadruple. I don't even know, but it's gone up as a lot since the last 30 years. And yet what has happened to interest rates on mortgages? They're still lower than where they were in 1998. Well, U.S. debt's going to crowd out private investment. It's just no proof of this, dude. Look at the S&P 500, the returns for the last 40 years since Reagan, when really we took off with U.S. debt. S&P 500's boomed. So if you want to look at private investment being crowded out, you can't see that in the rate of return on the S&P 500. Well, U.S. debt is going to crowd out private innovation. It's just not true. I mean, look what I'm doing right now. We got these cell phones, obviously government monitoring devices. I mean, if you think you're escaping NSA, you're crazy. If they want to get you, they're going to get you. But the convenience of it, we all have this cell phone. I was just watching this show just the other day, my wife and I, and someone was reading a book, I can't remember. But anyway, the point being is they had to find a phone because someone got hurt on the streets in a car crash. They had to find a phone to call for 911. Yeah, literally go to a person's house to find a phone or a payphone. You don't have to do that anymore. You just do it on your phone. It's crazy. Anyway, the point being is that the idea we've crowded out innovation, we crowded out private investment. It's just not true relative to the S&P 500 rates of return, relative to the innovation we all have. We have more innovation now than any time since the industrial age when electricity was introduced. I mean, it's just these economists are just wrong. Same thing where they're going to downgrade U.S. debt. That means interest rates are going to have to go up because people will be less inclined to buy our lower credit quality. It just did not happen in 2011. It's kind of like tariffs. Tariffs always lead to inflation. It just did not happen. Trump's steel tariffs did not lead to inflation on the price of steel or the price of aluminum. At some point, the theory has to take a back seat to the reality, man. This is what frustrates me to no end. I used to buy all this stuff. I used to buy the theory as it was sacrosanct, and it's just not. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to have higher interest rates. It doesn't mean that tariffs don't cause inflation. It doesn't mean that credit debt, high U.S. debt won't lead to to higher interest payments on bonds. It doesn't mean that. It just means there's no correlation for causation. That just isn't. I mean, it could happen. I could get killed right here going through this roundabout. I haven't been killed in 100 million times I've gone through it, but that doesn't mean I can't get killed in it. Man, anyway, the panic, it's just, is it rookies or are they just, or was it narcissists or sadists? No, sadists. What does the people like to hurt people? Sadists? I don't know if they're rookies or sadists, that they just like to promote crappy propaganda to get everybody scared. I think it might be what it is, because, if you live for clicks, scary gives you more. Let me just go over here. Scary stuff gets you more clicks than non-scary stuff. That's just a fact. And but it gets old. It's like at some point, don't you have to have some evidence in this? And they just don't. All right. God bless. Love your thoughts. No panic needed.